Hello, my dear friends who are sitting in front of the screen. Today, I want to invite you to join me in looking closely at an image that is perhaps all too familiar, yet carries within it a deeply hidden sorrow of human life. I want you to imagine a still, quiet evening, a time when the rest of the city has already drifted into a deep sleep. Inside a grand, comfortable and well-lit house, there is someone sitting completely alone by their desk. In their hands, they hold a savings book filled with long rows of numbers, or maybe the ownership papers of large plots of land and valuable properties. Yet the strange thing is that this space contains absolutely no joy, not even a single spark of satisfaction. Instead, there is only a heavy, weary sigh of loneliness echoing into the quiet emptiness. It is the sigh of a soul that is utterly exhausted, of a mind and heart tangled in a web of endless anxieties and unspoken fears. Have you ever stopped to ask yourself whether simply having a massive sum of money kept away for protection or a rock-solid bank account is enough to guarantee that our final years will be truly peaceful and happy? We spend more than half of our lives running after financial security, sacrificing our health, waking up early, and staying up late into the night. We endure a mountain of life pressures, all for one single purpose: to ensure we have a safety net when we grow old. We place our absolute trust in money, believing it will be the most unbreakable shield to protect us from the harsh storms of aging, sickness, and decay. But the reality of life turns out to be far colder and more ruthless than anything we could have ever imagined. Money can easily buy luxury and physical comfort, but it remains completely powerless when standing before the crushing weight of loneliness. Money can pay for the most expensive hospital beds available, but it can never buy you a single day free from physical pain, nor can it buy a quiet night of peaceful, worry-free sleep. There is a bitter truth that so many of us only begin to see clearly when our feet have already crossed over the hill to the other side of life. It is the moment when you find yourself facing the sharp, persistent aches of an aging body, or when you are forced to witness your own children arguing over inheritances. It is that quiet realization that there is no longer anyone left around you who can truly listen to or understand your heart. In those moments, all those numbers sitting in your bank account suddenly lose their meaning. When that time comes, a savings book worth hundreds of millions or billions cannot do a single thing to warm the freezing, empty void inside your chest. Material wealth simply cannot patch up or hide the spiritual poverty and exhaustion of a neglected soul. This is one of the greatest paradoxes of human existence, a reality we must awaken to as early as we possibly can. So, if money is not the master key that unlocks the door to a peaceful old age, what is it that actually determines whether our remaining years will be serene and untroubled? Buddhist teachings, especially the gentle, love-filled insights of Zen master Thich Nhat Hanh, remind us that there are three invisible treasures. These are three core spiritual assets that an awakened person always takes care to gather and cultivate day by day. You cannot see these treasures with your eyes, and you can never measure them using any form of currency. Yet they possess an incredible power to completely transform your destiny, helping you walk lightly and gracefully through the worst storms of your life. In our conversation today, I want to sit down with you, take our time, and gently peel back the layers of these hidden treasures so that together we can rediscover true, lasting peace for our minds and our hearts. To truly understand this paradox, let us look deeply into some incredibly real fragments of life that you might have seen around you, or perhaps you are living through right now. Let us first listen to the story of a man who spent his entire youth being exceptionally sharp, brilliant, and successful in the business world, gathering a massive fortune that anyone would envy. Now, as the evening of life sets in, he finds himself owning a beautiful, sprawling villa and a perfectly secure bank account. But his physical health has completely vanished. Every single day that passes is nothing more than a long series of hours staring at the plain white walls of a hospital room, breathing in the sharp scent of medicine and listening to the cold, rhythmic beeping of medical monitors. He has the financial power to hire the finest doctors and buy the rarest treatments, yet all his wealth is totally useless when it comes to giving him a back that does not ache, or a pair of legs that can walk freely in the fresh air of a park. During those long, dark nights when he lies awake because of the sharp pain tearing through his body, he stares blankly at the ceiling and realizes a devastating truth. Money cannot buy a single breath of ease, and it cannot trade all its millions for 1 minute of complete bodily peace. All the luxury and status he left outside the hospital doors suddenly become an exhausting burden when his heart is overflowing with fear and helplessness before the natural decay of his own flesh. Now let us turn our gaze to a second situation, a story that is just as heartbreaking in its own quiet way. Imagine a mother or a father who spent their entire existence sacrificing every single thing they had for their children. They skipped meals, wore old clothes, and never dared to spend a single dime on their own desires, pouring every bit of their savings into raising their children, buying them homes, and helping them start their careers. They believed with all their heart that this immense sacrifice would be the unbreakable thread holding the family together, and that when they grew old, they would get to enjoy the warmth of a peaceful life surrounded by their children and grandchildren. But the reality changes completely when they finally move into the large house that their own hard-earned money helped build. A cold, silent distance begins to creep into the hallways. The children are always drowning in their own work, lost in their own endless worries, and they no longer have even a few minutes to sit down and listen to a simple story from their aging parents. The family dinners become fewer and farther between, and the daily greetings turn into formal, hollow phrases or heavy, tense exchanges. The elderly parent suddenly feels like a burden, an unwanted guest in the very home they sacrificed to create. They do not lack any material thing. Their clothes are warm, their food is plentiful, but the landscape of their heart is as freezing as winter ice. The suffocating loneliness, the deep sense of being cast aside, and the crushing regret of a lifetime of unconditional love, answered only by cold indifference, weigh heavily on their mind. At this point, no matter how large the savings book is, it can never buy a single look of true understanding, nor can it buy a warm, genuine hug from the children they love more than life itself. And then there is a third scenario, one that has become incredibly common in our modern world. These are the people who actually have plenty of resources and a very comfortable emergency fund to rely on, yet their minds are never at peace, not even for a single fleeting moment. They live in a constant state of exhausting anxiety about what tomorrow might bring. They are terrified that inflation will wipe out the value of their currency, afraid that a financial crisis will dissolve their hard-earned assets, worried about theft, and haunted by every unpredictable risk of life. Every single day, they open their phones to check the news with a heart that constricts with fear. They become incredibly stingy with themselves and harsh with those around them because they are constantly trying to shrink inward, tightly clutching onto every bit of property they own. Their life transforms into a miserable cycle of endlessly guarding their wealth. They never dare to enjoy a delicious meal, they never go on a relaxing trip, and they never open their hearts to help someone who is struggling far more than they are. Money is no longer a tool to serve their happiness. It has become a cruel master, locking their mind and heart inside a dark prison built from fear, greed, and suspicion. Looking at these three different lives, we can see a crystalline truth. The true suffering of old age does not come from having an empty pocket. A lack of money is certainly a difficult hardship, but a poverty of the soul, a spiritual life that has no anchor, and a heart filled with unhealed wounds, terrors, and attachments. This is the true root of the deepest suffering in our later years. If we fail to recognize this, we will spend our entire lives chasing after empty illusions on the outside while completely forgetting the spiritual home within ourselves, which is the only place that can offer us genuine shelter when the storms of old age finally arrive. With that deep understanding in our hearts, let us step together into the discovery of the very first hidden treasure of an awakened life. This is the treasure of health, but it is not health in the way the ordinary world talks about it. It is the deep well of well-being that is born directly from acceptance and the practice of mindfulness. When we are young, we tend to think of health as a strong, flawless body that never gets sick, a body that can move like the wind and work for hours without ever feeling fatigue. But when we cross into the middle and later years of life, we have to completely expand and redefine this concept. True health in our later years does not mean possessing a body that is immortal and untouched by time, because that is an impossible illusion that goes completely against the law of impermanence ruling this universe. The genuine health of old age is the capacity to make peace with the imperfections of our physical flesh. It is the steady, quiet energy that allows us to live in harmony with our aches and pains and to accept the natural, graceful slowing down of our physical form. A massive mistake that so many of us make is that the moment our body begins to show the natural signs of aging, whether it is hair turning silver, eyes losing their sharp focus, knees becoming stiff, or the appearance of chronic ailments, we instantly react with anger, resentment, and fear. We refuse to accept the reality that we are growing old. We pour our money into expensive supplements and miracle treatments, desperately trying to claw back the youth that has already slipped through our fingers. But do you know what happens when we do that? It is precisely that attitude of resistance, that anger, and that deep-rooted fear that acts as the most potent poison, destroying your remaining well-being. When your mind is constantly at war, fighting a stressful battle against your own physical body, your heart will not know a single day of rest. And this heavy psychological pressure will only cause the ailments of the body to become many times more severe and painful. Zen master Thich Nhat Hanh left us an incredibly beautiful lesson about returning to take care of our physical body using the gentle energy of mindfulness. The master taught that our body is very much like a small child, and when that child is hurting or sick, what it needs most is not the harsh shouting or resentment of its parents, but a warm, tender embrace and gentle care. When your joints are aching, instead of getting angry at your legs for not obeying you like they used to, you can learn to sit down quietly. Breathe very soft, very deep breaths, and send pure love down to your aching knees. You can gently whisper to yourself, breathing in, I am so grateful to these legs that have carried me across the earth for decades. Breathing out, I send healing energy and deep relaxation into my aching limbs. The moment you do this, you are establishing a relationship of peace with your own body. You are accepting that physical decline is a beautiful, natural law, just as a flower must eventually fade and a leaf must return to the earth. Accepting this through mindfulness is not an act of giving up or throwing your hands up in despair. It is an act of supreme courage, a profound wisdom that sets your mind free from the paralyzing fear of illness. When your heart is at peace, when it no longer shrinks back in terror, your body naturally enters a state where its own healing mechanisms can begin to work. Your circulation settles and your nervous system is deeply soothed. That is the genuine treasure of health, a treasure that no savings book and no bank in this world can ever provide or purchase for you. Knowing the theory is one thing, but how do you actually reach out and touch this treasure? How do we take these sacred teachings and turn them into a living stream of peace that feeds our daily existence? It does not require you to do anything grand or overwhelming, and it certainly does not demand that you abandon your life to live in a distant monastery or a deep forest. All it takes is starting with the smallest, simplest changes, tiny practices of mindfulness that are incredibly easy to do, yet hold the power to completely shift the entire landscape of your mind. First of all, I want to share with you a very simple practice called the nourishing breath, a method you can use anywhere, at any moment of the day, especially when you feel the heavy pressures of life bearing down on your shoulders, or when your heart is tangled up in stressful calculations. In those moments, allow yourself to drop everything you are doing for just a couple of minutes. Find a way to sit down comfortably, keeping your spine straight but entirely relaxed. without any tension or stiffness in your muscles. Gently close your eyes or simply lower your gaze toward the floor to quiet the distractions of the outside world. Now bring your entire attention to the physical sensation of the air flowing in and out through your nostrils. As you breathe in, become fully aware of the cool, fresh stream of air filling your lungs and expanding your belly. Gently whisper to yourself, breathing in, I know that I am alive. This life is a true miracle, a priceless gift that the universe has placed in my care. As you breathe out, feel the warm air leaving your body, carrying away with it all the accumulated tension, tiredness, and anxious thoughts of the day. You can say internally, breathing out, I let go of all my worries, returning my heart to a state of absolute ease. Continue to follow your breath naturally like this, without trying to force it or change its length. Simply be completely present with it. You will find that after just 5 or 10 breaths, your mind will naturally begin to settle. The racing waves of thought will quiet down, leaving behind a smooth, still lake of peace inside your awareness. Beyond the practice of breathing, you can bring this quality of mindfulness into the smallest actions of your everyday life. Learn the art of sitting completely still with a warm cup of tea or a glass of water in the morning. Instead of drinking your tea while scrolling through your phone or worrying about what needs to be done today and how your children are doing, give those 5 minutes entirely to your cup of tea. Watch the tiny wisp of steam rising into the air. Breathe in the clean aroma. Feel the gentle warmth of the ceramic passing into the palms of your hands, and truly taste the subtle flavors touching your tongue. When you drink tea this way, the past can no longer drag you backward, the future loses its power to frighten you, and you are truly alive in the present moment, the only place where life actually happens in all its wonder. You can practice this exact same presence during your daily meals. Learn to eat your food in complete awareness. Before you take your first bite, pause for a moment to look at the rice and vegetables on your plate, recognizing the hard work of the hands that cooked it, and the sun, rain, and soil that nourished it into being. As you eat, chew very slowly and mindfully, experiencing the fullness of the flavors instead of rushing through the meal. And when you walk, whether you are strolling through a garden or simply stepping from the living room into the kitchen, make your footsteps slow and unhurried. Let each step make contact with the floor with a sense of stability and freedom, as if you are using the soles of your feet to kiss the earth. All of these slow, mindful actions are the way you save and accumulate pieces of peace for your mind every day, building a beautiful, unbreakable foundation for a serene old age without spending a single dollar. To see the power of this transformation even more clearly, let me tell you a story from real life about a man named Min. Min was a man who lived as the absolute definition of success in the eyes of society. Throughout his younger years, he was incredibly sharp, intelligent, and fiercely competitive. He traveled everywhere, built a thriving business from scratch, and accumulated a massive fortune. He owned multiple pieces of prime real estate and a bank account with numbers that made everyone look at him with envy. He was deeply proud of himself, believing he had built a flawless safety net for his own retirement and a perfect future for his children. He truly believed that his wealth and the authority he carried as a business owner would allow him to control every aspect of his life, keeping his family moving exactly along the path he wanted. However, as he crossed his 60th year, a quiet tragedy began to unfold from that exact need for control. Because he was so used to dictating terms at work, he tried to manage every detail of his adult children's lives, from the careers they chose to the people they married, down to how they handled their personal finances. He believed that because he had the money and the experience, every word he spoke was an absolute truth that his children had to obey without question. Over the years, this constant pressure built an invisible but massive wall between him and his children. His children felt completely suffocated by a love that felt more like a prison of control. They began to avoid him, their phone calls became rare and brief, and the occasional family dinners always ended in heavy silence or bitter arguments. The breaking point arrived when his oldest son decided to start his own independent venture and suffered a heavy financial loss. Instead of offering comfort, Min used harsh, biting words to criticize and shame his son. In a fit of anger, the son moved far away and cut off all contact with his father. Min's massive, beautiful house suddenly became a cold, silent space that felt terrifyingly empty. His wife, drowning in sorrow over the broken family, fell ill and no longer wished to speak with him. Min fell into a deep, dark crisis of the soul. He suffered from severe insomnia, and his mind was constantly filled with bitterness, anger, and deep regret. He asked himself over and over why he had sacrificed his whole life to earn money for his family, why he had such a massive savings book, only to end up completely isolated and rejected by the people he loved most in the world. His wealth could not buy him a single genuine smile, and it could not bring back the warmth of his family. His mind was entirely broken, and his physical body began to collapse quickly under the weight of high blood pressure and heart problems. The turning point in Min's life only came when an old friend visited and gave him a book written by Zen master Thich Nhat Hanh, gently encouraging him to attend a short mindfulness retreat. At first, with the pride of a self-made man, he was deeply skeptical. But, finding himself with nothing left to lose, he decided to step inside the meditation center. There, in that quiet space, completely cut off from the noise and competition of the world, he was taught how to sit still, how to simply breathe, and how to look deeply into his own heart. He began to see, for the very first time, the profound mistakes he had been making for years. He saw that while he claimed to love his children, he was actually just loving his own ego, trying to satisfy his own deep desire to control everything. He recognized how deeply his sharp, critical words had wounded the spirit of his children. Min learned the art of letting go of control. He dropped the heavy identity of being the powerful boss, the elder who was always right. He began to practice gentle speech, learning to send his son short, simple messages that were filled with genuine care, completely free of judgment or advice. "I know you are going through a difficult time, son. I am always here if you just need someone to listen to you." He learned to sit quietly and listen to his wife speak without interrupting her or trying to fix her problems. Instead of sitting at home obsessing over his wealth and fearing inflation, he began to use a portion of his assets to fund charitable projects, helping disadvantaged lives and finding a deep, forgotten joy in the act of giving. By the end of his journey, Min's material wealth remained largely the same. The numbers in his savings book had not grown, and had even decreased a bit due to his charity work and support for his family. But his destiny in old age had completely inverted. After sensing the profound, sincere change in his father, the oldest son brought his own children back home to visit. The quiet house was alive once more with the beautiful sound of laughter. Min could finally sleep peacefully through the night, his face radiant with a soft, lasting tranquility. He finally understood that the greatest treasure he had ever found was not locked away inside a steel safe. It was living right inside a mind that had been healed, and in relationships that had been mended through the gentle power of mindfulness and true love. Min's journey opens a beautiful path for us to explore and complete our understanding of the two remaining invisible treasures of an awakened life. These are the treasure of harmonious relationships and the treasure of a completely free, contented mind. Let us speak first about that second treasure, the creation of deep harmony within our family and social circle. As we have clearly seen through Min's life, money can easily hire a caregiver, and it can buy formal respect and service. But it is utterly useless when it comes to buying genuine devotion, respect, and love from your children and grandchildren. Family affection is a living flower that must be watered by the stream of true understanding. It can never be treated as a material transaction. To possess this treasure in our later years, we must cultivate a specific quality that Zen master Thich Nhat Hanh always emphasized, the practice of deep listening. What does deep listening truly mean? It means that when you sit down with your children or grandchildren, you completely set aside your ego as the elder who has lived longer. You lay down all your old biases and the outdated expectations of your generation. You listen not to find errors in their logic, not to correct them, and not to prepare your next sermon. You listen with one single, pure intention, to give the person in front of you a safe space to empty their heart of the heavy burdens, anxieties, and struggles that the younger generation has to carry in this intense, modern world. The moment your children realize that whenever they come back to you, they have a parent or a grandparent who is willing to sit completely still, listening to their heart without an ounce of judgment, looking at them with eyes full of compassion and tenderness, they will naturally long to return to you. Alongside this, you must learn the art of stepping back gracefully. Respect their path and their right to make their own choices. Your children have their own lives to live and their own difficult lessons that they must experience firsthand in order to grow into their full potential. Learning to stand quietly in the background, watching over them with a warm smile, and always remaining a stable, peaceful, spiritual anchor, is the exact way you protect and cultivate the treasure of harmonious relationships for your later years. Now let us look together at the third treasure, which is the ultimate sanctuary of a mindful soul, a free, unattached mind. The greatest strength of a truly wise elder does not lie in how many assets they hold, but in how much contentment lives within their heart. The world outside is always running a race designed to make us want more, pushing us to acquire a better car, a grander house, a bank balance with more zeros at the end. Running in that endless loop ensures that our mind never gets a single moment of rest. But when you are standing in the evening of your life, if you hold on to that aggressive desire to accumulate and grasp, you are simply guaranteeing a lifetime of endless inner poverty and suffering.